What's up, Chad? How everyone is feeling today? Happy to be back to another live stream, this time in 2025. Let's go. Happy to see everyone again. Gover, welcome to the stream. Ducatan, welcome to the stream. Ambeline, welcome to the stream. Dalen, welcome to the stream. So nice to see everyone again. How is the sound, by the way? How is the music? Is it too loud? Probably a little bit, right? Mohamed, welcome to the stream. Matin, welcome to the stream. Nice to see you. Briam, welcome to the stream. Babu, welcome to the stream. And Robert, welcome to the stream as well. So nice to see everyone. Excited to be back for another session here today. And actually today I want to do something that it took me a while actually to redo, which is literally relearning Rust. So I don't know if you guys know, but I think it was like probably 1.5 years ago, I did a presentation on Rust, literally showing people, especially PHP developers, like comparing what is Rust to PHP developers. You know, it was literally called Rust for PHP developers. And today I want to kind of rewatch that presentation while I do some Rust coding to literally just remind myself of what Rust is, because I have not literally touched on Rust since then, which is kind of the problem about Rust, is that it's a cool language, but there is no actual real world usage for someone like me, you know. But yeah, we are going to talk about this, and I think it'll be fun. Granted, the Evans is saying, my first experience with Rust was the raid after last stream. Oh yeah, because we raided someone who was actually doing Rust. Interesting. Adrian is saying Laracon is in 1 month. That's right, dude. I'm excited about this. Super excited. Arthur is saying, looks like I just came in time. Welcome to the stream, dude. It's nice to see you again. Patricia, welcome to the stream. Nice to see you again. Roberto, welcome to the stream. Welcome, everyone. Today, I'm so excited to literally redo Rust again. So just to recap a little bit, for those who don't know me, my name is Nuno, PHP and Laravel developer, and I'm also a conference speaker. And 1 year ago, if not more, probably 1.5 years ago, I actually went to a conference called PHP UK, and I have made a talk called Rust for PHP developers. And back then I was actually super into Rust. I even created like my small console framework, but yeah, since then I haven't actually do any Rust. So I want to get back into rewatch that talk on YouTube and also do some Rust code in parallel. So we are going to actually do both things at the same time. Let's go. Gobert Dev is saying, today we are going to get a little bit rusty, man. Tribunal Vivo is saying, did you do something, extension for PHP Rust? Yeah, so basically I remember back in the days, this was a long time ago, by the way, but I remember using some sort of package template, which would allow me to basically code a PHP extension in Rust. That was what was about, by the way. So, and when I coded that PHP extension, actually was kind of usable, but I don't think it would got more far than that. It was, you know, just a small experience or a playground. Kwati Watson is saying, I started to learn Rust beginning this week, so this stream has come at the perfect timing. That's perfect, man. Welcome to the stream, by the way. So yeah, I'm gonna send you, by the way, I'm gonna just change here real quick to the coding screen. Let me know again if the audio, if the music, everything looks okay to you, but I'm gonna send you this link, which is literally my talk, called it Rust for PHP developers. I'm gonna publish here the link, so you guys can also, you know, save this in your bookmarks if you want to. And by the way, literally feel free to follow this tutorial with me, because I have done this tutorial, this presentation we are about to watch, it's literally live code. It's live code. I have literally installed Cargo and compared Cargo with Composer, compared Composer lock with Cargo lock or whatever it is on that side. So we are going to literally do a to-do application today on stream written on Rust. So you are more than welcome to also follow this process with me, okay? Rika Sofina, welcome to the stream. Nice to see you here, man. Yeah, dudes, what else do I want to say? I want to personally wish you all a happy 2025 year. And, you know, hopefully we're going to have a great year here on stream. And my plan is keep with this tight schedule of literally keep streaming every single day, but also publishing a video every single day on YouTube. So if you haven't checked my work on YouTube, just definitely check that out, because I'm publishing a YouTube video every single day. And my YouTube videos typically are compilations or, you know, segments of these live streams. So these live streams obviously take like an hour, sometimes up to 3 hours, and it's not cool for people actually walk through those 3 hours if they want to only check the highlights. So what am I doing is literally just capturing some of those highlights and put them, you know, on my YouTube channel. So if you're watching me from YouTube, you know, feel free to follow me, and same goes on Twitch. I need to do something here on YouTube. I literally forgot about this. Give me 1 second here. There we go. So something I always do now is literally launch this poll on YouTube, asking people to like the video if they're enjoying the content, and actually works quite well, because my live videos actually now have more likes than the real videos I publish on YouTube, which is kind of funny. Adrian is saying the potential with FFI is huge, but somehow still not used. Yeah, because there is no actually potential over there. FFI is disabled by default on HTTP, for example, which, you know, makes it practically unusable for anything, at least HTTP level. So I think that was kind of one of the things I've explored when I was doing a lot of Rust in PHP, was kind of exploring some of those magical scenarios with FFI, with extensions, but didn't actually come up with anything interesting, I think. Yeah, that being said, let's get started, man. I'm gonna actually put off the music here so we can watch the video together. So the goal is like follow the video, but also putting on pause, go to coding a little bit, and kind of redoing everything I have done on stage right here on my Rust Over. By the way, I'm using Rust Over, which is a product from JetBrains, the same company that produces something like PHP Storm. And I think, I'm sure, this editor is actually free if you are producing some content like I am, or doing open source. So you might want to check that out. I think if you are literally just doing stuff for learning purposes, you can use the editor for free. So you guys are free to literally just download this editor and install it locally, you know? Okay, so that being said, I feel we're ready for getting started. So this talk is called Rust for PHP Developers, and I've done this talk on PHP UK. It's super practical, will be fully live code, okay, so will not be boring at all. And there is a lot of comparisons between PHP and Rust. That's why I want to rewatch this to literally remind myself of what Rust used to be about back in the days for me. And maybe I will, you know, find the passion again for doing some of Rust code. The reality is that, I'm going to be honest with you, in my line of work, there is very few to none applications of Rust, basically. You know what I mean? I rarely or never really have to write any Rust code. And that was kind of a shame, because I actually like to write Rust. But, you know, as a web developer, I just use JavaScript, PHP, and that's it. Nothing else, you know. I don't know if any of you have done Rust before. So, by the way, for those of you in the chat, we are already with 100 persons, both together on Twitch and YouTube. So I'm curious to know, does any of you have done Rust in the past? If yes, just say yes. If no, just say no. As I'm generally curious to see if I am the only one, you know, or not. Okay, Duker10 is saying that never, which is, you know, is interesting. Granted Evans is also saying that no applications on Rust. Squatty Watson is saying not professionally, so I assume you've done some of Rust, you know, as a side project or potentially at home just to play a little bit. And Dripping Castle is saying no, so none have done Rust. All right, so let's just start with some general consensus about what Rust is about. By the way, if you don't know what Rust is in the same group of languages of something like C or C++. Okay, so you have stuff like C and C++, which is bare mental performance for stuff we usually don't think about because we just use web applications or do web applications. And Rust is literally a language that fits that group, you know, the group of low-level languages like C or C++, okay? Konstantin Ross is saying, I have done PHP, C, and C++ in Java, but not Rust. Yeah, which is interesting, Konstantin, because as a person who have done C and C++, I feel like you are going to love Rust, okay? I can see on the YouTube chat that Ben James, no, Robert have said no. Most of the people, if not everyone, said no, literally, which is interesting. Adrian is asking, what is the difference between Rust and Zig? I don't know, actually. I know that Zig tries to be a little bit like Python in the sense that, you know, the same syntax of Python or the same easiness of Python, but I have no idea comparative to Rust what are the actual differences. I would say the main difference is that Rust requires you to write more boilerplate. That's my understanding, okay? Rust also have a strong compiler, meaning that you will never do any mistakes on Rust pretty much because the compiler is super strong. You can think of the compiler in Rust like PHP Stan in PHP, but imagine like PHP Stan at level 10 or level max. Rust compiler is a little bit like that, you know? Obviously, it goes way further than typically PHP Stan does because when you're working with low-level languages, you need to take care of memory and things like that. So I'm super rusty, no pun intended. I'm super rusty because it's been so long that I have not done any Rust whatsoever. So I don't remember literally anything. I must be honest with you, okay? Jiro J is saying Rust is amazing. It's like Go, but a solid language. Yeah, so I actually also want to bring Go to the stream because I have never actually done Go in my life. And I'm curious to know, like, which cases would you choose something like Go instead of Rust, for example? I'm generally curious about that. Robert Mann is asking, what is PHP written on? So it's written on C, okay? But yeah, let's get started. Again, it's been a while, so I am super rusty on Rust, so I want to see this from scratch and then just apply some of this in my editor. Let me know how the sound is. Let's get that right, by the way. Let me know how the sound is.
All right.
So again, this conference was on PHP UK. This is me right there with my GitHub UD. And a fun story about this conference is that I actually never have done any Rust in my life before applying to this talk. So I applied to this talk before knowing any Rust whatsoever, and then I have to learn Rust to be able to do this talk, which is, you know, kind of funny. Konstantin Ross is saying, request for stream tomorrow, pack development. There is a lot of pull requests that could be checked so the community can see if we are in the good direction. Yeah, we probably, I don't know if we are going to have any time today. If not, we are going to do that tomorrow for sure, okay? And people are saying that you would like to see also some Go content. Yeah, let's see, man. Let's see. Jiro Jerry is saying, Go have a little garbage collector, so real-time application I don't recommend. Yeah. Yeah, but Go is his garbage collector. It works like PHP. It just happens automatically, right? I think so, okay. All right, let's start this.
Can everyone hear me, I guess, even on the background, which is cool. Welcome to Rust for PHP developers. For those who don't know me,
Tell me how the sound is, okay? Don't forget about that.
name is Nuno Maduro. I am Laravel core team member, and I'm the creator of multiple open source tools on the PHP ecosystem, such as PastPHP, Collision, Larastan, OpenAI for PHP, and more. My main side project, besides working for Laravel, of course, is PastPHP. If you don't know what it is...
Just by the way, I don't miss speaking in conferences at all. It's so stressful. Like, you cannot imagine how stressful it is to give a conference talk. I don't know if any of you have done conferences in the past, but truly, like, preparing a talk, it's so tough. At least for me personally, it just stresses me out for so many months leading up to the conference. And it gets better with time. I feel like I'm getting better handling literally anxiety, but it's still super stressful. And when you are on stage, I don't know, but I remember, like, last Laracon US, for example, when I was on stage, I was almost throwing up on stage. Literally, the vomit came right here, you know, like right here. Like, when I was entering on the stage, I was almost throwing up. Almost. I was at this of throwing up on stage, live on front of 1,000 people plus 4,000 on YouTube. It was crazy, you know, crazy. Adrian is saying, you will enjoy Laracon so much. Dude, for sure I will, because I won't be speaking, so I will just having fun for sure.
This is pretty much an elegant PHP testing framework with focus on simplicity. So if you are curious about it, go to pastphp.com and let me know what you think. Now today, I hope...
Arthur is saying, when I have to talk, I really stress about the time, not having the best content for the time I'm giving. Yeah, one of the tips I usually give for first-time conference speakers is, first of all, typically just cut off like 50% of the content of your talk so you can speak slowly, you know? It's super important to go on stage and speak super slowly, and so you don't get stressed over time. And the second tip I would give you is literally just rehearse nonstop. Rehearse for nonstop, literally every single day, probably 2 or 3 times a day for the last 30 days to the conference. And it really helps me a little bit. So that's what I have done so far. Guide Evans is saying, I used to be an instructor on the British Army and occasionally had to give talks to many officers. It was horrible. Yeah, it's not for everyone. I don't think I will ever get used to it. Even if sometimes I don't feel nervous on stage, I'm super nervous, like so much nervous. James is asking me if it does feel weird to watch myself giving a talk. I'm gonna be honest, in the past it used to feel weird for me because literally I didn't like my voice. You know, I'm not native and probably, you know, just feels weird to hear myself. But I have learned that it's actually good that you watch yourself so you can be critic about the things you don't do correctly, especially when giving a talk. Because typically most of your buddies will just tell you that you did great, you did fantastic, you know, you are awesome, blah, blah, blah. But, you know, they don't like to point to you like the things you could improve. So I literally watch my talk. I do feel that this talk right here is one of my best, especially because I was talking about a topic that I don't master, which I think it's pretty cool.
Everyone is excited because we are going to talk about Rust from a PHP developer perspective. And we are actually going to do a full live session of code. But before we jump on that, let me give you a little bit of the history of Rust. Most people think that Rust was created by Mozilla, but in fact, Rust was created by a Mozilla employee with the name Graydon as a regular side project. And Graydon was doing a lot of C and C++ at the time, and he said something like this on the creation of the project. My main audience for Rust are frustrated C++ developers who pick C++ due its performance, but they like to have something safer. Now, if you...
Yeah, I remember like doing this study, and one of the reasons why Rust became so popular so fast is because people who were doing C and C++, they were constantly facing errors like segmentation fault or any kind of, other kind of problems. It was literally difficult to have a compiler that works right. And I also remember that one of the reasons why people were just so tired of C and C++ was because of security issues by its memory problems. So basically hackers could hack into those memory non-safe regions to literally hack the program.
Work with systems languages such as C or C++, you do face this kind of stuff all the time. Segmentation fault, double free or corruption, buffer overflow. This is pretty much what you face all the time, and Graydon wasn't.
Yeah, so basically, if you are doing C and C++, this is the kind of stuff that you see on the console all the time, and it's very complicated to debug. And I feel like Rust literally did a great job by having a compiler that really just works.
Happy about it.
So you don't face this.
So what it made is like, he made Rust a memory-safe language to really fight all the errors we just saw before, but with the same advantages such as C and C++, which is bare metal performance. Now, Mozilla, which was the company Graydon was working at the time, they actually also saw the value.
By the way, if you just arrived, my name is Nuno Maduro. I'm a PHP Laravel developer. Today, we are not speaking about PHP, we usually do, but we are speaking about learning Rust from a PHP developer standpoint. So we are going to literally do some coding today where we are going to apply some of the examples in Rust, but how you typically would approach in PHP, which I think it will be fun. And if you watch me from YouTube, just give me a like and a follow if you enjoy my content. The same goes on Twitch. You can also support financially my work by subscribing or becoming a YouTube member,
This. They thought we use a lot of Rust and we use a lot of C and C++ within Mozilla, and we are facing this kind of issues of memory safety issues all the time in Firefox, for example. So they said, Graydon, just work on that full time within Mozilla, and let's see more Rust within Mozilla itself.
Yeah, just to recap a little bit, because I want to skip and actually do some coding. What happened was basically Mozilla in 2010 had this employee which was doing or creating a language called Rust. And Mozilla actually detected that Rust, which was being created by this employee on his side project or his side time, Rust was actually perfect to save or to fix some of the problems Mozilla had back in the days. So they just said, look, we know that you are developing this language in your free time as a side project. Just bring that language into the company and just work on that full time, which I find so interesting and so funny. And then the Rust team was created within Mozilla. And what happened as well was on 2020, because of COVID and many things like that, basically the Rust team was affected by the Mozilla layoffs. And many companies were already using Rust back in the days. So all of those companies, which are Microsoft, AWS, and more, they literally created this Rust Foundation to support all of the development of Rust, okay? Yeah, and this is literally some of the stats that were presented that year. So Android, which is the software used by, or the operating system used by Android phones, literally fixed most of the memory issues just migrating to Rust. So as you can see, for example, they have close to 250 memory safety vulnerabilities, and that literally decreased up to almost a little bit less than 100.
From Google. And this graph represents the memory safety vulnerabilities the Android software faces per all of it.
And while they were doing the migration, they also detected that 0 memory safety vulnerabilities were found on Android Rust code, which is super interesting. Now, this was the thing that sparked me to literally learn Rust. Rust was literally the 7th most loved language in the world for 7 years in a row. And I don't know if this actually kept going. I feel it's still the most. Let me check on Google real quick. Most loved programming language in 2004. Which website is that one, by the way? Stack Overflow survey. Okay. Overflow survey. There we go. Is this the one? Oh, yes, it is. Grandin Evans saying, yeah, that's a really cool stat. Yeah, I'm curious to see, like, in 2024, what was the result, though? So Stack Overflow is obviously, you know, this platform where people used to check problems in their codes. People now use ChatGPT and things like that. But they always have this survey, which they run every year, where they ask developers which are their favorite languages. So I'm literally curious to see what was the result this year. There we go. Programming and scripting languages. Admired and desired. Oh, interesting. Yeah. But Rust continues to be the most admired programming language with the 83% score this year. Yeah, the problem with Rust is always the same. Like, you know, there is no actual applications of Rust or things we would do with Rust as a web developer. I feel that's the problem. I don't know what you guys think about this, but typically that's what I think, is that there is no real usages of Rust in our line of work, at least my line of work, you know what I mean? But Rust continues to be the most admired language, which is very impressive. Which one is the second one? JavaScript, Python, SQL. SQL? Interesting. PHP is still in the top 20, which is interesting. There is also the fact that, you know, who are they making these questions? Because if you work like with the modern stack in PHP these days, you know, something like PHP Stand, Laravel, and all those cool tools, you probably love PHP and you admire PHP. But most of the developers, let's say, you know, probably more than 50% of the developers, they don't actually work with good PHP anymore. So you know what I mean? So it's easy to literally be good at this survey if you are a language that was made like 5 years ago, because everyone is doing modern Rust these days. But you know, but obviously a legacy language, something like PHP, but also, you know, Ruby, for example, there is still a lot of people who work with legacy code. You know what I mean? Megacorp CTO is saying, I almost ruined the future of my company by starting a web app with Rust and Axios. Yeah, I mean, why would you do a web app in Rust with so many technologies, right, you know, around us today that allows us to do a web app so fast, you know what I mean? I'm curious though, what was the problem on that web application? Probably finding developers who were capable of delivering fast stuff on web apps, probably that, right? Yeah, so something I remember about this talk as well is that I'm going to make this a little bit smaller right here so we can actually start doing some code.
Start a new project.
There we go. Something I remember is that Rust have cargo, which is the equivalent of Composer. So if I type Composer version, I see obviously the Composer version I'm using. If I type cargo -- version, I see what, you know, what version I'm using from cargo. And also remember that, you know, just like PHP, cargo also has its own file. And typically with PHP, you have like the composer.json, but in Rust, you have the cargo.toml file, which is a questionable choice as a file, you know, as a file extension. What do you guys know this toml extension basically? Like this, literally this tom extension. I'm not too much familiar with it, to be honest. Megacorp is saying, no reason, I was just hyped about Rust. Yeah, man, I feel you, I feel you. The Coffee is asking, Nuno Maduro, since nowadays we only use and learn frameworks, would you think that would be hard for you to make a website in native PHP? I don't think it would be hard, to be honest. No, I think I would be able to do it fast, basically. The problem is that I wouldn't do it because of many of the tools that just allow me to go so much more faster, you know? Like, why would I do something with native PHP if I can just use Laravel and just be 1,000 times faster? That's basically the reason, you know what I mean? James Key H is saying the Laptos framework was making good strides. Not sure how it's been doing over the past year or so. Yeah, gotcha. Paul is saying people just take PHP because who wrote when there was no MVC around? Yeah, you're saying that people remember PHP how it used to be? I agree with you. Because, I mean, most of the, like 20 years ago, PHP was still being written like this, you know, we're using server variables and things like that. So I totally get you, okay? But just to recap a little bit, yeah. I remember that Cargo is like the equivalent of Composer, and literally instead of having a JSON file, with Cargo you have something that looks like this, and you can also run something like cargo install or whatever. Yeah, exactly. So you can type cargo install, and then you provide the package that you want to install, which, you know, they have also the equivalent of packages. So if I search for cargo repository, which I literally forgot the name, it's crates.io, exactly. So this is like the equivalent of packages. So they also have, like, you know, a bunch of crates for the ecosystem, and, you know, they have a kind of their own ecosystem, which is interesting. So if I wanted it, I could literally type cargo install and install a package on this little to-do application.
So this is the first tool we get. After Cargo, we also get something called Rust-C. And Rust-C is pretty much the equivalent of the PHP binary.
Exactly, I remember this. So basically, in PHP, every time you want to run something, even if you don't see it, you typically type something like php index.php. So what this does is literally interpretate at runtime the contents of the file and output or not something, you know? However, with Rust, they have like the equivalent of this would be the Rust-C, which is called it this way, Rust-C. And this is kind of the equivalent of the PHP binary. There's a huge difference between Rust and PHP, which is Rust is a compiled language and PHP it's not. It's an interpreted language, which undeniably today with tools like PHP Stan is a little bit questionable, but yeah. Jaro is saying, I see a lot of people using Tyro.app. I think I know what that is. What is it called? Tyro.app. I think it's like some sort of a starter kit with React and everything like that, right? Exactly. It supports any front-end framework, so you don't need to change your stack. Exactly. I remember this. It was literally something that you could potentially attach to like a React framework and have your backend powered by it. I remember this, yeah. Trisemedo, thank you so much for the subscription using Prime. I really appreciate your support. And by the way, if you want to support my work financially, everyone, you can do it using Twitch subscribers or using YouTube members. All the money I get from this will be literally reinvested on the stream, making the stream a little bit better. So people on the chat are saying that Electron is literally, Tauri is literally an Electron alternative. So I assume you would code Rust on the back end still, but you know, some kind of GS framework on the front end, and it compiles the application down to something that can be used on the desktop, just like Electron, I assume. I hope it's not a browser though, because if it's a browser on the back end, I don't think it is. Otherwise, it wouldn't make any sense.
In the sense, if I just do it like this, I'm going to remove the pasta option dash.
Yeah, I remember this. So I think I didn't. Yeah, I've done this like literally 2 weeks ago. But to start a new project on Rust, the only thing you have to do is type cargo init, and then you provide the application name. So this is the equivalent of Laravel new, for example, okay? So instead of typing Laravel new, you type something like cargo init, and you provide the application name. Now, I think you need to provide bin if you want to do an executable application instead of doing a library. But let me check this.
I'm going to create a new package, like a library.
Oh, it's the opposite. It's the other way around. If you type --lib, it will create a library. If you don't provide anything, you will create literally something that can't be executed, which is the case of this application I have right now, which I have done off stream already. But yeah, cargo init to do is literally what you have to do if you want to have a setup like me right now.
Basically, to others can use. In this case, I'm going to remove the --lib, and I'm going to simply type cargo init to do. And this as the feedback of the.
Just by the way, I don't know if you are, already worked with different languages, but something I for sure have learned is that learning a new language doesn't mean that you want to change languages or change line of work, but it does teach you a lot. Like I have learned a lot while doing Rust, just like I've learned a lot while doing JavaScript, just like I've learned a lot doing Python. And I feel like I always learn something new. So if you can take, 3 hours of your day during a full year, I think you won't be disappointed by learning a new language. And surprising it or not, most of the teachings that you already know can be applying by learning a new language. So as you can see, most of the things we do in PHP, like Composer and Laravel new and, Rust C, equivalent of PHP, most of these things are actually the same. It's just different syntax or different way of doing things. But behind it, they are very similar in terms of, conceptual.
Terminal is telling me we are creating a binary application. Now, let's take a look about the file structure here. So I'm going to open this to-do on my left.
Yeah, this one I remember. Now that I'm literally watching this talk, everything is just coming to me again. So it's just crazy. But I do remember this a little bit. So this main.rs, which is literally the extension in Rust, it's like your entry point of your application. So it's the equivalent of index PHP. So if there is like a starting point of this app, everything starts on the main.rs, which is the equivalent of index PHP. Okay, and also you need to have a main function. So I know that PHP, you literally run things at root level. So you would do something like here immediately, something like hello world, which undeniably it's more simple than having a function main. But on Rust, you literally have to have the main function, which is the entry point of your application. And I can actually already run this if I think is cargo-q or whatever. There we go. If I type cargo run-q, I'm running this application in printing the obviously hello world, which is the content of this print new line. Jaro is saying my first language is Lua. After C, PHP, Python, Go, and after 2 seconds, every new language gets more easy. That's true, man. That's also what I felt, by the way. By the way, Chad, what was your first language? Did you start immediately with PHP, or did you start with something different? So this is cargo.rs, which, has this content. We also have this cargo.log, and the cargo.log is the equivalent of composer.log. Okay, so the composer.log contains the dependencies installed on the latest composer install, which is our dependencies on vendor. And this is the equivalent of that, cargo.log. And finally, we have the cargo.toml file, which is the equivalent of composer.json, have the application name, the version, and also the edition. Something funny about Rust is that there is no Rust 7 or Rust 8. They actually work with editions. In the latest edition, if I'm not mistaken, is 2021. I'm actually curious if any of you can Google to find what is the latest Rust edition, but I think it's still 2021. Okay, so we have P-Nerd, which his first language was C, Kias was PHP 3. We also have Josh, which was C#, and Arthur, which was Visual Basic. Grande Evans, it was Basic. Juacaldi13 said his first language was PHP. Anrific is saying that started with Java, PHP, .NET, Elixir, and now PHP again. Welcome to the family again, dude. Drippen Castle is saying extended basic. Interesting. Adrian is saying QBasic. So I don't think I actually have done basic in my life, by the way. Jaro J is saying that C# is a great language. I used to build a game with Unity. Yeah, I also have done C# a lot when I was in college, and I still feel that it was a great language back in the days, and probably I think it have evolved even more. Now it's just really cool. Oh, Gurka is saying that his first language was on BASIC, Atari 800. Oh my god. I wish there was some sort of Atari emulator on the browser so you can see some of that UI back in the days. And Patricio's first language was C++. Interesting. Shripin Castle is saying, I cannot stay for the rest of the stream today, but thank you for covering adjacent topics in your streams. Thank you so much, Shripin Castle, and see you tomorrow. Tomorrow we're going to be back to some PHP, talking a little bit about Pack PHP. Josh just confirmed that actually Rust Easy Edition is still 2021, but we are going to actually have Rust 2024 and just coming out in the next month, which is very interesting. Thanks for the update, Josh. Drippen Castle, see you tomorrow, dude. Jonas, welcome to the stream, dude. Better late than ever. That's right, man. Welcome to the stream. By the way, today we are literally talking about Rust. We are going to see, or literally do an application from the PHP standpoint. You know, we are going to code a to-do application on Rust, but, you know, giving you some examples of how you would do this, or what is the equivalent on PHP, which I think is very interesting. And meanwhile, because I don't remember a lot of these things, I'm watching my talk called Rust for PHP developers, because I have literally give a talk about Rust for PHP developers 1 year ago. It's one of my most successful YouTube videos, by the way. And yeah, you know, I think it's going to be a fun stream. Ben is saying that I also just remember Pascal. Never done Pascal as well. But yeah, cargo.toml file, equivalent of composer.json, and you can also have dependencies here just below. So for example, if there is any dependency called Actis Web, which I think it isn't a dependency or a crate in Rust, use it for web development, you can literally just include it like that, okay? All right, what else do I want to talk about? Yeah, you can run your project by typing cargo run -q. I use the -q because typically just running cargo run will give you like a bunch of output, like finishing dev profiling, running, and blah, blah, blah. I want to truly focus only on the output of my app. So the only thing I type is cargo run -q. That's it. I also know that Rust have like their own Pint, and you know, they have like their tooling, but today you know, it's just too much to focus on that a little bit.
I'm going to open this file with a name, use this flag 4.0, which is exactly what my source code is telling me on the process of here. The type is not specified. This is one cool.
Yeah, one of the cool things about Rust is definitely the type inference and how powerful it is. So here, for example, I don't need to specify void. You know, typically on PHP, if your function doesn't return anything, you can literally just come here and provide void. But something that PHP developers confuse a little bit is type safety by being verbose on types, which is a little bit different. You know, you can have type safe code without being verbose on types. And when types came out on PHP, you saw a lot of developers literally putting types everywhere, sometimes even when they shouldn't. And Rust actually, you know, recommends you sometimes to not actually use types whatsoever, because the compiler is so strong that if you have problems with type inference or with typing itself, it would throw a problem on the console, okay?
About Rust is that the type inference is very strong. So here, if I wanted to be explicit, I can say that the return type of this function is void. So this is the equivalent of the PHP thing, like this, basically. So here, this function is returning.
Exactly. So instead of having double points like this, you would have something like this. This means that this main function returns void, meaning nothing at all, okay?
Void, meaning nothing. And then I have a macro println, which is like a function that displays hello world. And of course, if I run cargo here on the console, which I do.
Exactly. I remember this. So the first thing I need to do here is literally just output some of the, our usage of the CLI. So what we can do, it's just come here and just type the following: usage, cargo run. What was this? Yeah, to do command in arguments. I remember this. Yeah, to do and then command in arguments, and probably just below we can do some sort of the commands. Exactly. Add. Which commands did I had? I forgot about this. Yeah, let's do just 2 for this stream, like the add, but also the list.
Add the list command.
Exactly. Let's do adding a to-do, but also listing all the to-dos. Let's do this for now. I feel like it's a good start. There we go. So if I type cargo run -q, I should actually see that. Exactly. And I remember that one of the cool things that I like to do on Rust is literally just having a function with the name print help, and I can just remove this, or those printlns to print help, and then remove this and call print help directly on this main function. And one cool thing about Rust is that it also uses point comma, just like PHP, which is kind of funny. But yeah, it just works this way. And if I type cargo run -q, it should just work. Yeah, but so Ironic is saying, I thought about being verbose. I could avoid doing documentation on functions. Yeah, I don't think it's a bad practice that you just type everything. The only thing I would discuss here is that PHP developers confuse a little bit being verbose on types. They think being verbose on types is the same as type safety. I'm going to give you an example. Like, if something like this would come from PHP, something like, let's just say name equals to a string equals to John. Like, this type right here is totally useless, okay? If something like this would come from PHP, this type right here is totally useless because this variable type can't be inferred from the given string. This is what I mean, you know what I mean? And I'm pretty sure that if this thing would come from PHP, all of the PHP developers would be using this all the time. What do you guys think about this? Like, I find this, especially this particular case, kind of useless because you are assigning a string to this name variable. So what is the point of actually using the string type inting right here? You know what I mean? At least that's what I think. But yeah, that is other like types in PHP, which I think people exaggerate a little bit sometimes, you know what I mean? Inorific is saying, I was thinking about function arguments. Yeah, but I think function arguments make totally sense because you are being explicit a little bit about, about what does your function accept. But I'm going to tell you one example, which I would like to see different on PHP. Like, if you have an interface, let's say an interface, call it to-do on PHP, okay? Something like this. In this or to-do repository, to be like, a little bit more explicit. So I'm writing PHP code, by the way. If PHP would allow me to do something like this, add, and then the to-do being, for example, a string, like, I don't know, why would I have to retype this string right here if I already implemented to-do repository? This is something, for example, we have on TypeScript, which I would like to also see in PHP, which is literally type inference. So if I'm implementing this interface, I would never have to, have a type right here. Same goes for the void, by the way. I would typically just, you know, not have this, not have the void return type, and literally I would just do this. I'm gonna be fair with you, you know. But yeah, it's something, for example, TypeScript offers. Doesn't require you to type the entire thing. It just gets inferred from the type, or on PHP case gets inferred from the interface. Grid and Evans say, yeah, I agree, this case is totally useless. Yeah, I don't know if you meant the variable case or this one, but regardless, I find both cases interesting that, you know, people confuse literally being verbose on types with type safety. And, you know, Inertific is saying type inference by interface. Exactly, because I mean, all of the types on this add function could be a little inferred from the interface, so there's no actual reason for having to retype everything again, even the visibility of the function, to be fair, you know what I mean? But yeah, let's keep going, so otherwise we don't move forward.
So I'm gonna do that.
Yeah, so this presentation was fully live code. So what am I doing right now on stage is live coding, and I'm coding this application on stage, which is, many people think this is stressful. For me, it's easier because if I'm looking at my laptop and literally just typing some words, it just relaxes me a little bit, instead of just watching people in front of me.
Oops, cargo run -q. There we go. And I get to see the usage right on my terminal. Now that we know a little bit about functions, you're looking at this function main, something we can do is extract this usage to a new function with a name, this content path, we need to catch the arguments and then the command, but we need to store those values somewhere, and we usually store that on variables. And let's talk a little bit about variables on Rust before we actually talk about the standard library. So variables on Rust are not actually variables, meaning that they don't change the value. They are immutable by default. This is a little bit different from PHP, as variables can change.
Megacorp CTO is saying the problem is that PHP checks types at runtime. So I think that inferring types and checking it would be performance too hard. Yeah, I don't know, man. I feel like so by the way, PHP checks types in runtime, but we also have PHP stand to check those types, you know, earlier. At compiling phase, we can call that way. But yeah, I mean, I agree that there's limitations on, you know, on the PHP ES parser to not have the things I just mentioned, that good type inference, basically.
They are actually variables. So on Rust, when I type something like, I'm going to just do this on the main. When I type something...
Oh my god, I remember this. So basically, like on PHP, like for example, we are building a to-do app right here, right? So we type something like cargo run -q, but the goal is literally just type add, you know, my new to-do, for example. So something we need to do is grab this add, but also grab this content of the to-do. So for that, we need to use variables, and on Rust, variables are a little bit different from PHP, where they actually are immutable by default. So if I do something like, let's say, let foo equals to bar, I don't think I can anymore change the contents of foo. This will literally just throw an error on the console if I do this. Exactly. So this little variable is actually immutable by default, so it can no longer be changed, which is kind of fun. And if you want to change the variable, like over the duration of your program, something you can do is just add this mut keyword, and now this variable is mutable, which is, I remember this, which is kind of funny. So this will now compile, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, it's compiling with a bunch of warnings because this variable is being created but not used anymore. But yeah. By the way, if you have any questions regarding, you know, any questions on Rust, like what means immutability, for example, or, you know, anything really, just feel free to ask, okay? You guys are a little bit quiet today on the chat, which is funny because I see like 100 people on stream, but maybe you guys are not prone to talk about, you know, or to watch some of this language explanation, but I hope you are enjoying it, by the way. Regardless, yeah, I know. So basically a variable, in order to be mutable or changed over time, you need to have this mut keyword. That's one of the cool things about Rust. And one of the first things we need to do is literally catch this add command, but also the content of the to-do. And then remember, for that, Rust has literally this huge standard library, which is, you know, it's not a concept that we talk a lot about in PHP, but PHP comes with a lot of libraries within. Like when you use something like ArrayMap, for example, this comes with PHP itself. And typically in other languages, they call this helpers or these functions that just come with a language, something that comes with the standard library, okay? So this, for example, it's called the standard library on Rust. And one of the modules is the environment, which allows you to grab the arguments of that environment. So something I will do here is just type let arguments to be an array of strings. So this is the equivalent of array in PHP. If I were to write this code in PHP, this probably would be, let me check if ChatGPT can help. Args equals to, we don't have types in PHP, but I could possibly do something like this. Var array with only strings, where the key is an integer. And possibly in PHP, I would do something like possibly this. Exactly. I think this is probably what I would do in PHP to collect, you know, an array of strings. This is probably what I would do. Rodolfo Vasconcelos is saying, Rust, I have never tried before. Yeah, I mean, to be honest, like, the only Rust I have done so far was everything leading up into this presentation. But afterwards, I have done close to nothing on Rust, to be honest, you know, close to nothing. So it's kind of cool to just be back a little bit and see some of this again, you know. Ryan, welcome to the stream, dude. Nice to see you again. But yeah, so again, once we have this args, which is a vector of strings or an array of strings on a PHP wording, let's say, something I can do is just dd, or, you know, dump all the args, which I don't remember how I do that on Rust. So I have to check on my video real quick.
Like you will see that Rust will start to.
Yeah, we need to use this macro, call it dbg with an exclamation point. So let's do that. So I think I can do this to literally see what I am providing. There we go. So dbg, this little thing you are seeing right now, this is the equivalent of dd on PHP or Laravel, to be honest. So dbg allows you to see the contents of a variable. And as you can see on the line 10, what I do have within args, which gives me as well the variable name, which is kind of cool. What I do have is the name of my app, but I also have the command, and I also have the contents of my to-do, you know? Canada is saying, Happy New Year, Nuno. Good that I will, good that I was able to join you live on Twitch. Welcome to the stream, dude. Nice to see you here. Arthur is saying, liking Rust already. Yeah, man. It's a cool language, you know. You can have fun with this. So, Rodolfo Vasconcelos is asking, do you have any specific reason for learning Rust, or just curiosity? Mainly curiosity. I'm going to be honest with you. Falsy Value just subscribed on Twitch. Thank you so much for your support. Really appreciate it. And any money I get from this will be reinvested in making the stream better. Thank you so much, dude. Yeah, by the way, if you just arrived to the stream, how much people do we have? A bunch, which is pretty cool. Yeah, close to 100 again. So, by the way, if you don't know me, my name is Nuno Maduro. I'm a PHP and Laravel developer and also Laravel core team member. Usually our streams are about PHP and Laravel and everything in between. But today we are doing something different. We are relearning Rust. So if you don't know, literally 1 year ago, I have done a presentation about Rust, and I actually learned Rust while preparing this presentation. And since then, I actually had 0 use cases to actually redo Rust in my work, but also outside of work. So what I'm doing today is literally relearning everything. So potentially I can bring some, either Rust content or just remind myself what Rust is about, because many of the things I just forgot. Ryan, thank you so much for the subscription on Twitch. I don't know if your new job position is already public. Regardless, thank you so much for being here on stream, and happy to see you here, man. Yeah, so Ryan Chandler is asking if argv is the idiomatic way of getting CLI arguments on PHP. And yeah, I feel like that's literally the idiomatic way. I think like today we don't actually use something like this to literally fetch the argv anymore, because typically you use libraries like other kind of libraries, basically like Symfony Console and things like that. But it's probably still the idiomatic way if you don't have any library to work with, to be honest. Oh, it's semi-public? Interesting, Ryan. Thanks for the subscription on Twitch, dude. I really appreciate it. By the way, Chad, this is literally time to celebrate, because I have crossed 200 subscribers on Twitch just in 1 month, which is mind-blowing, literally mind-blowing, be able to have more than 200 subscribers on Twitch. Mind-blowing. So thank you so much for your support, by the way. Peter Greens is asking, why consider Rust above PHP, or do they have a different purpose? Great question. So I have mentioned early on the stream that Rust belongs to a segment of languages, or a group of languages, which is different from PHP. So Rust belongs to the group of languages like C or C++, or system level languages, basically, while in Rust, while in PHP, you belong to a different group of languages like Python, Ruby, and JavaScript. Okay, you do different things with these 2 different tools. Okay, so we just did dbg, which is the equivalent of dd in PHP, to find the contents of the arguments. And I can see that I actually have had, but also have the contents. So I feel something we can do probably is check if we have the command on the given arguments. And if we do, we actually hand the command accordingly. But let's see how I have solved this problem here on the video.
Okay. So a couple of things here we need to take a look of. The first one is that the Rust compiler on the console is telling me that you cannot assign twice.
Yeah, one of the most strong things about Rust is how the console looks like. We know that today we have something like collision for this kind of things in Laravel, but this thing is different, is in another level in terms of output, by the way. Yeah, so Ryan is saying, I think Rust really shines when you use it the same Tailwind R, moving performance critical things to Rust and pair it with PHP, so you get the best of both worlds. Yeah, that's right. So basically, highly performance situations, which, typically, I do feel though that typically on regular web applications or regular web apps, you would never need Rust. It's really like these edge cases that typically we don't find.
An immutable variable. The value allows me to mutate. This vector of strings will be specific vector of strings that are compiled and run.
There we go. So here we are exactly on the same situations as we are right here, by the way, okay? So I just fetched all the variables, and then I have used our own DD to display them on the terminal.
We can see these values on the terminal. So once we get the arguments, remember, we are trying to capture the command. So when I type a cargo run add, we need
Peter Gins is saying, thanks, a happy new year. I love your show. Thank you, dude. Really appreciate those comments. You know, gets my motivation up. Geostar is saying, happy new year. Happy new year to you too, man. Really appreciate it. Geekaman is saying, hi Nuno, my very first comment here from last 1 month, been fighting to catch you live, and I finally did. It's 3 a.m. and basically I'm a Laravel dev, following you from a long time and trying to start Twitch live stream, and you inspired by you. Thank you, dude. I really appreciate that. You also shared your YouTube channel, which I'm going to share on YouTube here so people can subscribe. Yeah, subscribe. GMGKHA1, his YouTube channel, so you can see some Laravel content apparently.
To capture this value, to then do something with the command, that unwrap this.
Oh my God, I remember this. Yeah, so basically what we do have at the moment is kind of a collection of arguments, but this works like a Laravel collection where you can call methods on this. So something you can do, for example, is just fetch the one on the index 1, which will be this one, and you can assign that to a variable. So you can type something like let command to be the index in the first position, and you need to always unwrap, because on Rust you literally need to tell, okay, I want to get the index 1, but I want to tell you as well what happens if the index 1 doesn't exist, which I think is what I will do right now.
String within the key number 1, or else, which is otherwise,
Loki, welcome to the stream.
This default callback. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to say
exactly. So I need to type here unwrap or else, and then provide the default callback, which will be no command provided, and exit the application using the stath process exit 1. So again, this is something I've noticed on Rust, is that instead of having like global variables, like stuff like env, you know, or stuff like, I don't know, like shell execute or whatever, there is literally modules within this standard library which you can use individually, which is kind of cool. So here, for example, I'm using the model env to get all the arguments, but also I'm using the process module to exit my current process on the console. And I feel like if we don't provide any commands, something we can do is literally print the help, because it's literally what the user needs. So if I do something like, let me just debug here the command. If I do something like cargo run -q, we'll display the help because we are literally on this unwrap or else. I can probably exit with 0, by the way. There we go. But if I do something like add, I should now see add, thanks to this DD on Rust. Happy New Year, everyone. Happy New Year, Steven, right? Happy New Year, Steven. Welcome to the stream, dude. Jonas, welcome to the stream as well. Nice to see you here, man. All right, once we have the command, I feel we need to have a match statement, which I literally forgot how to do that.
On the position 1, which is the case right, and import this module right here on top. So standard library.
Oh, right. We can import modules as well. So here on top, instead of literally doing std, you know, env, I can literally just do use std env and use std process. And below now I can access those just by doing this, okay? Mo is saying, what challenges may arise from applying PHP-like approaches to coding on Rust or Python regarding AR carries, error handling, overall approach? Well, some of the challenges you might face is that there is concepts like memory management, which is typically something you wouldn't face on PHP, which you will have to learn. You possibly will have to learn about some more advanced types like generics and things like that, in case you are not doing it already on PHP. But yeah, besides these very simple things that you may not have in PHP, I feel like it's a very easy language to learn. Obviously, you have the entire ecosystem to learn. Today you have stuff like on PHP, like let's say you have Pint, you have PHP Stand, you have Laravel. So there is this entire ecosystem that you need to learn on Rust, because they also have their own Pint and their own PHP stand and their own Laravel, you know, their own ecosystem, which typically, you know, it's something that it's not easy but not difficult at the same time, you know what I mean? Ghostart is asking, hi Nuno, if you were to start from zero in Laravel, what would be a recommendation too? I probably would recommend you to go to Laracasts. It's my favorite way of learning Laravel. It's through videos, so, you know, probably my favorite way. By the way, Shad, I want to personally thank you. The fact that you guys have been so supportive. You know, I've been streaming for the last, let's say, the last month, and I feel like I always receive, you know, supportive comments from you all in the chat, but also, you know, on YouTube, but also on Twitter. And I really want to say thank you for all your support, by the way, okay? All right, folks, let command to be done wrap or else, blah, 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 blah. dbg command, so we're making progress. What else? Name is Ken, welcome to the stream, dude.
Process. Okay, so let's see how this is going. Let's debug here as well. The command. I wanted to do something.
Exactly, I remember this again. Yeah, something that I'm literally, everything is just coming back to my mind again, because I mean, I've done this presentation 1 year ago, but everything is just coming. So basically I remember how I solved this now, because at this point, we cannot have a command, for example. In that case, we present the help, but we may have a command. And I remember that the way I've solved this is literally by having an exit code and then a match statement like you would have in PHP. So you want to convert that given command to a string. And something I found very confusing on Rust is they actually have two string types. That was super confusing. I don't know if any of you in the chat have done Rust before, but something I found very confusing is that is literally two string types on Rust. It is like the string object almost, but it is also this string native type, and it just feels weird to have both. And you know, so here, for example, if I want to compare or do a match statement with a given command as string type, I need to literally do this as string, even though the command is already a string, but this kind of string though, you know what I mean? So I feel like, obviously, if we have, so Sia by Ryo is saying same with Java. Yeah, man, I don't know. I have never worked with Java actually, just a little bit in college. And yeah, just, you know, feels really confusing to me at the time when I was doing Rust from scratch after coming from a PHP background, okay? All right, so once we have the command, I feel something we can probably do is have a function here, because I remember we can actually just have inline functions on match statements. Can we?
Within this block of code. If the command is list, I want you to do something else.
Exactly. So I think in Rust, I can literally have expressions inside, just like this. There we go. And I can also have my default expression, which would be, you know, the default in PHP. And so this would be literally like this in PHP, but on Rust, you have this, you know, this little underscore, I think.
If the command is something that I don't know, meaning I want to enter on this default scope,
exactly,
I want to do something else. And finally, now that we have an integer of 32 bits on the exit code, where we...
Yeah, oops. There we go. Exactly, so here I am on the add command, which will be inside. I can have something like dbg adding to do. This will be listing all to-dos. And at the bottom, we have the default, which will be an unknown command. And I can probably print help. I'm going to probably not print help for now. So this is an exit code, which needs to be an integer. So I probably need to return 0 here, and also return 0 here. Why are you complaining, by the way? Interesting.
Can do here is simply exit with that exit code. And of course, we need to get an exit code from this match expression. So we need to type some code here, actually. So I'm going to type print new line with adding a pretty cool. I used to see more one. So
exactly. On Rust, basically, if the latest line is your return type, you can literally remove this and also remove the return. And this will basically be the return value of the expression, which is pretty cool. So here I can just do this instead. So this is returning 0 as exit code, this is returning 0 as exit code, and this is finally returning 1 if there is an unknown command. And I can probably use process exit with the exit code to finish, finish the entire program. And I should actually already have something. So let's type cargo run -q adding a to do. Why am I seeing it twice though? Interesting. Anyways, then I can have, cargo run -q list to listing all the to-dos. And if I type something like chat, which I don't have, I get displayed unknown command, which is interesting. Chat, what is original thoughts about Rust? Like, it does feel a cool language to you. It does feel a little bit too confusing. For me, it was confusing when I was first learning this stuff. So I get why it may get confusing, but there is some safety things interesting about Rust. Like, for example, this unwrap or else, which is super interesting, which is get me the position number 1, but that if there is any, just print the help, which I feel it's something really cool and something that I would potentially use on PHP if that was to be there. Because on PHP, what we would do here is something like if the command, for example, is set, we probably would do something like this, or command now with double exclamation points potentially. You would do probably something like this to see if the command is there, but yeah. Grinda Heavens is saying, it does feel okay to me, but I would like to have to look a little bit more. Yeah, we are seeing very simple Rust, by the way. This is very simple Rust. It's not something like advanced or whatever. Jonas is saying, this is the first time I ever seen look at Rust, and it's super confusing. Well, I don't know if I'm being a bad teacher or if it's Rust being confusing. But yeah, it will get better with time. I can tell you that. Jimmy G is saying, I have never worked with it. Me neither, man. That's why, well, actually I've done a little bit of Rust in the past, but I don't know, professionally I've also never worked with Rust. Okay, what else do we need to do?
Syntactic sugar. So if you have to the user, and I get to see that, we can do like implement. So this is the equivalent of a construct in PHP. And just below, we need the method for the struct, which will actually handle the process of having a to-do.
Oh my God, I remember this. Yeah, so basically, instead of having like classes, which would typically have, in PHP, you have this commands, you have these files which live individually. So here, for example, I can have something like commands of Rust, okay, .rs, apologize. And then typically what something you would do is something like class add command, and you would have like the handle method, which would, typically save the to-do list somewhere, okay? Now on Rust, it works a little bit different. So if you want to have a sort of a class, something you can do is type implementation add command. And then you type your constructor, which I think it's something like this, right? Oh, it's fn new, that's right. So fn new, and this will return the self, or basically, this is kind of returning new self as almost that on PHP, okay? And finally, you have something that handles saving the to-do on the database, which is also funny, works a little bit like Python, where you receive self as an instance, as a variable, which is kind of funny. Siva is saying it's really cool, but it's really very confusing. I would feel like Rust is very high level, and I would prefer Golang or maybe Elixir. Yeah, it's totally understandable, by the way. Loki is saying, I haven't looked into Rust yet, but it seems a little bit safer, but more complicated than C and C++. Gotcha, man. All right, so what we need to do now?
Persistent layer. So let's do that.
Oh, I do need to associate a struct to the add command. So basically every time you have, you know, a struct like this, in order to have methods on this struct, which is the equivalent of class, add command, you need to have this implementation of the add command, okay? The implementation of the add command will contain all the methods of this given struct, which is pretty easy.
So this is the equivalent of a construct in PHP. And just below, we need the method for the struct, which will actually handle the process of adding a to-do to a persistent layer. So let's do that. I'm going to type function handle. And then I don't want to actually create a static method. I want this method to be an instance method of my struct. So I'm going to pass here self. OK?
No, I don't actually check the messages on X. So, by the way, if you're watching on X, I'm going to open it real quick. But I typically don't check messages on X. I'm also always on Twitch and YouTube. Leonardo, welcome to the stream. Rafi, welcome to the stream. Yukuru, welcome to the stream. Thank you, thank you. Slava Reason is asking, how do you feel about the trend of rewriting tools for JavaScript in Rust? I think sometimes it does make sense. You know, when you have... Just like Ryan was saying, if you have something like Tailwind CSS, where you have this very small component which needs to be hyper performant to help people, you know, having their compiling steps a little bit faster, then it would make sense. Regardless, there is this question where if you rewrite something on Rust, less people will be able to contribute to it, which is something people need to think about. Backets Next is asking, how am I doing? I'm doing fantastic, man. Today I'm relearning Rust after so many months without actually touching this. Feels good to, you know, working with something new. Mo is asking, how do core architectures differ across programming languages? For example, while Laravel PHP uses routing, middleware, controllers, are those the same similar to other frameworks and languages? Yeah, I would say yes. Like if you go to another language, you will find, you know, you are very likely to find a framework that it's not the same as big as the Laravel ecosystem, but you will find something with routes, you will find something with queue jobs, you will find something with, you know, with this middleware approach, with controllers as well. Like if you go to Ruby, you see Rails. If you go to Python, you see Django. Which I still think they are not comparable with Laravel, because Laravel it does have a huge ecosystem, but you would always find the equivalent. That's why I was saying at the early stage of this stream that once you learn a language, when you are jumping between languages, things just become easier and easier, basically. But Rust, yeah, Rails is like super. I think almost if you learn Laravel, you will automatically learn Rails at the same time because they are very similar. Guzman, welcome to the stream, dude. Nice to see you.
This is the equivalent of this in PHP. Okay. So the handle will return back an integer of 32 bits. Remember, we need this back to our match statement, to the exit code. So this handle will return an integer of 32 bits. And within this scope, we are basically printing out what we had before within our match statement. So I'm going to copy this, head to within my handle method.
Exactly. So what I was doing here, on the talk is literally, instead of having this main function which has this huge match statement, instead of having this return 0 right here, I will use this add command implementation directly right there. So here, for example, I need to return 0 at the end, and here I want to return an integer with 32 bits, which is, you know, kind of cool that you have multiple integers on Rust, for example. So in PHP, you have something like int, and that's it. So on Rust, you have integers with multiple sizes, so you can literally use the one that works best for you. You know what I mean? Sebe is saying, the only battery included that could compete with Laravel is Spring. I have never used Spring, dude. So I'm literally, you know, curious about what Spring is about. Steven is asking, does Rust function always return the last line? That's confusing. It's too magic if I cannot write return. Dude, it's not that confusing. So basically, instead of having something like this, which you could have if you want to. You can still have this, by the way, okay? You can still have this. It's that if you have something like this, you can literally just remove this too, and this will be the equivalent of return 0. What do you guys think about this? Like, would you guys like to see this on PHP? If yes, say yes. If no, say no. But I personally feel like this is a very good syntactic sugar. Like, instead of having return 0, I can have just this. What do you guys think about this? Guzman just said no. Ipo is saying, I don't think Rust is complicated, but I could not replace C and C++. Gotcha. Ipo is saying, I would like just write return 0. It's more readable and also more clear. Interesting. So none of you actually likes this. Okay, I'm gonna follow your advice and use just return 0 for the sake of, you know, using what the chat wants. And here I'm gonna type print new line, adding it to do. And I probably will write right now as well the list command. So I'm gonna just copy all of this and having something like here, which will be list, and this will be lists all to-dos. So how do I use this on the match statement?
So using any self argument here. However, the handle method is non-static, and that's because I'm passing the self here.
Exactly. So the difference between static and non-static methods on Rust is literally this little variable right here. So if you don't have this variable, this becomes a static method. If you have this self variable through reference, then the method is non-static, which is interesting. So it seems that I can use those new implementations just like so. New list command. And also on the add, this will be add command, new handle. And I need to import both on top. Oh, interesting. I would expect, you know, some sort of auto completion right there. Interesting.
So add command, new handle is all. That the add command that you just have imported within our main.rs file is a private struct. Another very cool thing about Rust is that structs are private by default, meaning...
Right, so here on top, I need to type mode commands, which is done, and then I type commands, add command, but also commands list command, but it's complaining because structs are private by default, which is interesting. So basically on Rust, unless you make a struct public, or let's say a class public, you cannot simply just use them on different files. So I think something I need to do here is go to my commands file and literally make this stuff public, which I don't remember how to do that.
That when you create this struct add command, it's private to the commands file, and you cannot use it elsewhere, unless you use this keyword pub and you make this struct public.
Exactly. So I need to make the struct public, and to do that, I just type pub struct add command and do the same here on the list command. There you go. And now I should be able to use them, right? Yes, no longer complaining. The new is still, it's still like private. I need to understand why.
I'm going to clear my terminal, run cargo once again, and let's see how it goes. Next, the terminal is telling me that you are calling the new and the handle method. However, both are private. Okay?
Yeah.
So functions implemented on structs are also private by default.
By default, yeah.
Meaning that I need to come to this function new and actually make the function public.
Oh my God, I remember this. So basically, you know, each time you have a struct, you need to make the struct public, but also to be able to call methods, you also need to make those methods public. So everything is private by default. So now it should stop complaining. Oops, right here. There we go. How about now? Ooh, it's complaining a bunch. This is list command. There we go. Nice. So if I type add, for example, adding a to-do. If I type list, listing a to-do. Interesting. John is saying a lot of pubs in Rust, but not pints. Oh my God, so funny. Mudo Kid is asking, why relearning Rust? Basically, I've learned Rust 1 year ago, but I have not touched it since then. So today I'm relearning it. Grenda Avison saying, I think private by default is a good way to go. Yeah, probably, undeniably, like, yeah, in PHP, the way you probably would tack this is you would have an annotation that looks like this. At least that's the way I do. I have an annotation like, you know, that people should not use this in method because it's internal. And the way they fight this is making methods private by default. So, you know, unless you make them public, only you can use it on this given file, okay? So it seems that a lot of you actually prefer to have the return 0 with this comma point instead of having the, you know, the magic return like this, which is interesting. Darjus is asking, hi, there is any plans in Laravel to move routes to attributes instead of having them in separate files? I don't think we have plans for that. David Adams is asking, I feel like it would be confusing when you want to early return. Oh, interesting. So you mean like something like if true returns 1, but then he would be confusing to have just 0? This is what you mean? Yeah, because you cannot use that magic syntactic sugar if it's like in the early return. So I do get your point of view, by the way. Okay. Kudu Puga is saying, good night, Nuno. Can you give me insight? I suppose I have fields in my database encrypted. How do I scale searches for them? Maybe create hashed fields. Well, I also have encrypted information on my database, but I typically never have the need of searching them, so I don't have an answer for you. Chris is saying, Rust is simple until you have to deal with non-trivial and synchronous stuff. I agree with you. So it was kind of, I remember having to deal with asynchronous code, but also, you know, concurrent code, and that was different, like in terms of difficulties, increased a bunch, so I agree with you. Dan Can Code is saying, I feel implicit returns are weird, given how everything else is very explicit on Rust. I eventually use it though. Interesting. All right, so dudes, we have progressed a lot. Like literally we can run this, we'll display the usage. I can do this, it will display that this command does not exist. I can run add, but I can also run list. So I feel like the last step is literally storing this given information somewhere and then listing this information with the list command. So let's do that.
Let's move forward here. So we need to have this code right here. I'm going to all to-dos. The job thing on that file command. When Rust compiles, unless
Okay, so this is actually undeniably cool. On Rust, you can literally have this wildcard to import everything on that given folder. So here, for example, on the main file, instead of doing this both, I can just do this, which is kind of cool, you know? Like on Laravel, I probably would like to do something like this, to be honest, you know? So I don't have to import every single file on top. I don't know about you, but I end up with massive files, massive use import statements, and they are just big, confusing, and something like this would actually be cool. Let me know what you think, by the way.
We have made like to-do in English in the same way. Okay.
By the way, chat, I'm going to copy paste the link of this talk so you guys can watch it at your own pace, of course. There we go, and post it here as well on YouTube, but also on X.
All right, calm down, huh? So on PHP, you have this thing called a trait, which allows you to actually share methods between classes. People are not actually sure about it, like why people are still using it. However, on Rust, in order to declare an interface, use the keyword trait. Okay.
Oh yeah.
So this
was so confusing. Like you guys know that in PHP, we literally use the word trait for sharing methods between stuff. So you know, typically if I have some common behavior, like let's say get name or whatever, I can encapsulate this within a trait, and then I can use this trait on different classes to kind of share these methods. I'm not a fan of traits, I'm going to be honest with you, but it's something that can be done. However, on Rust, they actually call interfaces traits. Which was so confusing back in the days. So if I want to create an interface for this, both structures, like this add command, but also this struct list command, something I can do is have them implement a given trait, and I think this trait will be called a command with only the handle method. But let's just check this.
PHP interface command. Okay?
Yeah, exactly.
The difference is that similar to PHP, we can specify what this interface is actually forcing the definition of, which is a handle method which receives self, meaning not.
Sebe is saying Nuno laughs at his own jokes. Dude, I'm a little bit crazy. You have to apologize me about that. Dan and Cody is saying, I didn't realize there wasn't an import all kind of thing on PHP. That's true, that's true, man. So basically on PHP, you need to import every single class individually, which is a little bit annoying. Mo is asking, what do you think could cause a major leap forward in the evolution of programming languages, such as fast performance, easier coding, and better developer productivity, improved scalability? I feel like something that languages need to think about even before thinking about performance, especially like in our line of work, like, you know, PHP, Python, Ruby, etc., is literally good documentation. You know, very good documentation, very good entry points. Because, you know, let me just put the music a little bit less loud here. I feel like developers these days, they have very little attention span, let's say that. They're a little bit impatient. So unless you give them a language that really just works, that it's not confusing, that have beautiful documentation, that have, you know, people streaming like me as well. But because I mean, the new generation, they actually connect to these kind of things. They connect to beautiful websites, they connect to beautiful documentation, they connect to YouTubers, they connect to resources online. And that's something that I am trying to fight a little bit on the PHP world, is that I want to be part of this new generation of developers who are coming to PHP, and they see someone like me programming in PHP every day, and they can connect to me, potentially leading to some people doing Laravel and PHP in the future. And this is something we need to start thinking about a little bit in the PHP world, which is we need to have people creating resources, like literally, not only streaming, but creating videos, creating, content online. So the new generation of developers can connect to us. Because make no mistake, like a bunch of these new JavaScript developers, a bunch of this new JavaScript wave is related to the huge amount of content being created for JavaScript. Okay, so it's not because JavaScript is good, because it's questionable if JavaScript is actually good or not. It's because of this new wave of content creators making JavaScript so connected to this new generation of developers. Epo209 is saying there is a new JavaScript library every 5 days. I think that's actually cool, man, because meaning that developers are passionate about tools and passionate about, they are passionate about content. Then Ken Code is saying the way Rust docs system works seems impressive. I think you can put test cases in the comments. I could be wrong. I know they have like the embedded testing framework on the system, which is pretty cool. So I can actually run cargo test to run the test suite. So the test suite is literally embedded on cargo, which is interesting. Jimmy G KHAN is saying, how great thoughts for PHP and Laravel. Same here, bro. Yeah, man, I really appreciate you saying that. Early today, I actually read a comment that like most of you, it's not, if not everyone, are really nice to me. Like you guys say cool stuff about me, and keeps me motivated basically to keep creating content around PHP and Laravel. But early today, I read a comment, I think it was on Twitter, where some dude was saying something like, you shouldn't be doing content like this. You should actually just be doing cool stuff instead, like you were doing in the past. In this new version of Nuno, you are in the downhill or whatever. And it really feels like crap. I really feel like crap when I'm reading comments like this, because it's so stupid. But typically, like, imagine that I have 100 comments or even more saying that my content is cool and they are enjoying the streams and people are enjoying the videos. My ad, I don't know, for any reason, always focus on that little negative comment, and I wish I could just change this, but sometimes it's tough. It's just tough. Duncan Code is saying, I should mention I appreciate past work. Well, thank you. Really appreciate you saying that. I find it helpful when I was picking up Laravel at the beginning of last year. Yeah, man, past is cool, especially if you have done any previous work using something like Jest, which is kind of cool. Oops. There we go. João, welcome to the stream, dude. Nice to see you here. Canada is saying negative comments always carry more weight than the positive ones. That's right, dude. I don't know, man. It's just I'm used to get negative comments, like if I were to, stop working every time I receive negative comments, I would have nothing done so far, literally nothing done so far. And at the moment I was making the math the other day, I have 500 million total downloads on the ecosystem just from packages I have created. So, if I were to read every negative comment and just take it to the word, I probably would have built nothing at this point. Agent is saying, yeah, I don't like your content too, bro. Denkin Code is saying, yep, had just much a V-test background, so PASS really helps with that approach. Nice. Yeah, I mean, João Ribeiro is saying, do not give 5 cents to all the negative comments. you must think that all negative comments come from failed people. Well, I don't know if it came from failed people, but for sure, the amount of positive feedback I'm getting on this new journey of content creation is way over any sort of negative comment I may read, you know. So, you know, I'm happy with it, with my journey so far, and I feel like, you know, I'm gonna keep investing on this. And, you know, there is no negative comment that could potentially put me down. I used to read way more, I used to care way more about negative comments. But, you know, I still care a little bit, I'm going to be honest. But I'm going to, you know, I'm going to make an effort to care less about that. That's for sure.
Static.
Thanks for your support,
back
dudes.
An integer of 32 bits. This is my interface definition. However,
yeah, so just to recap here a little bit. So trait, which, you know, is the equivalent of something that shares methods in PHP. On Rust, actually, it's a way of defining an interface. And because we have literally two classes on Rust at the moment, which is add command, but also list command, something we can do is create this trait, call it command, to share some of the public API of those two commands. In the public API, it's obviously having this handle method, which allows us to, you know, receive the own instance, but also returning an integer with 32 bits.
on Rust, you can have default implementations, meaning that you can provide, okay, the struct with
Jean Patricio is saying, for sure did not came from someone doing better. Yeah, man, sometimes people
this trait
are trying to teach me how to do open source, and then the open source
will have
profile is
this
really
method
empty.
that works this way. So you can provide a default concrete implementation for the straights implementing this interface. For now, I'm going to do similar to PHP, meaning that I don't want to provide a default implementation.
Oh yeah, remember, this is actually powerful. So traits on Rust can actually have default implementation. So here, for example, I could have something like, you know, running my command or whatever with something inside, which is very, very cool. Just default implementations. But here, for example, I don't want anything really.
That is up to the struct to define the concrete implementation of the handle method. So once we have the interface traits in Rust, we can copy the name, and you probably would expect to do something like implement.
Yes,
command.
that's what I would
It
expect.
doesn't work that way, okay?
It doesn't.
So I'm going to remove it here, and I'm going to go just on the bottom of the implement add command. I'm going to say the following. The implementation of command for add command is the following just below. So it's not.
Yeah, so instead of having like literally the methods on this default implementation of command, what I need to type here is the implementation of command for add command is literally this one below. So now I can remove it from here and probably do the same real quick on the list command. So here, instead of having it here, I'm going to copy it and I'm going to type the implementation of command for list command is this one. Which is something interesting as well we do on Rust, is that instead of having like different files for each one of the classes, we can actually have a single file with all of the classes inside, which I think is cool. Canada Raz is asking, is that the return arrow character added into the code? Yeah, so if I were to translate this to PHP, this would be private function handle, and it wouldn't have self because this is like a magic variable in PHP. And this would be an integer, just exactly like this. This is the equivalent in PHP of this little thing right here. Okay. Emily Dev is saying, sounds like there should be a pave PHP / pave to pave away the negative comments by taking them and turning them into positive. Not saying, I mean, sometimes negative comments can have very good criticism, you know, so I'm always open to that as well. Soy Alexi is saying, you are doing great, very well at this new stage, nothing stop you. Thank you, dude. Gray Havens is saying, I'm jealous that he has hair. What do you mean? Because you don't have hair like this? So you asking, Canada Raz is asking because on the video looked like an arrow character, not simply dash character. Oh yeah, but this is a dash. So I was using ligatures at on my Sublime text back then. So that's, I think that's why you think this is like the arrow thing, but it's literally dash and then like, you know, the bigger or less than character. Ligatures, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Within the struct definition is not within this first implement add command, it's just below implementation of command for add command is the one within this class. Nobody creates an interface, meaning an implementation, of course, is persisted so function right here. So we need to, so I can just remove this property on my constructor.
Exactly. So what I will do now, and I apologize if I'm moving a little bit too fast on the video, but I'm just recapping a little bit how this presentation was about. So something we need though, actually, first of all, I need to make the code working. So I'm going to run cargo-q add, for example, and apparently it's not compiling because the method handle was not found. I think I need to import this straight on top. So I'm going to just type use, let me check here real quick.
I did the arguments in our main function right here. So we need to provide this thing to...
Oh, maybe I just need to make the method public. Let me check that real quick. There we go. Nope. Do I need to make public on the interface? Nope. Do I need to import the interface? Like this? Possibly. Is it compiling? It is. Okay, well, now it's working. So our code is working, and for the add command, I actually need to provide the content. So something I will do is literally accept the given arguments on the struct. So let's ask ChatGPT, accept the arguments here, which will be, come on, ChatGPT, come on.
The add command. This will be equally a vector of...
Exactly. So, oh, comes on, yeah, wait a second. Yeah, the arguments will be a vector of strings, just like that. And I can provide those arguments on my little new function, just like that. There we go. And finally, I don't need this. There we go. And finally, I need to adjust my match statement on the main function to receive those arguments right here. Okay, and I should be able to access those arguments directly within my handle. So I can type something like let the to-do or let the content to be equal to self get the argument number 2. Again, we need to take care of the fact that the argument may not actually be there. So something I can do is provide the to-do content just like this and return. Actually, I may exit the process right here or not. Let me think a little bit how I want to do this.
Strings. And finally do this. Okay, and that's done. So let's do that. My number 2 of my args get the index or make index number 10 on the main function. However, this time I'm going to do something different. What I'm going to do is just say this. If you have some description, and that may come from the description option. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger so everyone can follow. There you go. If you have some description coming from the description option,
was so confusing back in the days.
I want to execute this code right here, and for that, I'm going to simply debug the description itself.
Yeah, this if statement is actually very confusing. So something I can do is doing something like this. If or let me think a little bit. Exactly. So if the option is none, meaning we don't have anything on that key number 2, I just type, please provide a description for the to-do. Otherwise, I can actually unwrap the given description, which at this point will be a string, and I can now type something like dbg description. This would actually work. So please provide a description for the to-do, and if I type hello chat, for example, I should have hello chat, which is the result of this dbg. There we go. It's a little bit different from the way I've solved it on stage, but also
then
works.
Return back probably 0. Other we are grab, and I'm going to file, type something like
Blah, blah,
this.
blah, 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 blah.
Off Rails, open options.
Yeah, one of the last things we need to do, especially on this add command, is at this point we have everything we need. We have the description of the to-do and everything. So we need to store this somewhere. And I think back then what I did is stored it like literally on the file.
And I want you to open that file for writing.
Yeah, I remember this being a little bit challenged because people will never, you know, understand this full API on stage. So I had to literally just write this a little bit faster.
Writing on append mode.
Okay, so let's type this. And what is the name of the? Yeah, there you go. So I'm going to create a mood file, which will be equals to. Thank you, ChatGPT. Back in the days, we didn't have ChatGPT, which is kind of crazy. So I want to write in a write mode, append mode, create true. So if the file doesn't exist, we'll still create the file, and I can import on the top the std file system, which I can use below, just like this. So create the file and unwrap it, and finally just write everything to that file, which doesn't get done this way.
And finally, the file name is the one with the name storage.txt.
Yeah, let's call it
If something goes off
for
Rails,
now.
which it shouldn't go off Rails, but if something goes off Rails, I want you to type file not found.
Yeah, let's not do that for now. We don't need it.
So at this point, we are opening this file for writing. And what we can do is simply type now, okay, write on that file.
Canada is saying it looks pretty clear to write in the file. That's right, man. We could potentially, you know, I was literally teaching Rust, so I couldn't go complicated. You know, I couldn't go with difficult stuff. So I had to go with the most basic example. And the most basic example is writing that stuff on the file.
The contents of my description. And this will basically increment every description of the to-dos on bottom. So let's run cargo to see how it goes. I need the exclamation point here. There we go. Cargo run add
this
to-do
will
number
fail,
1.
I think. There we go.
I get to see an error saying that to-do added. I can simplify this a little bit by doing this.
Yeah, I need to write on the file, which gets done with the macro write ln file. Okay. So this can be done this way. There we go. And should be it. Like the last thing I need to do is type print new line to do added with a given to do. This should actually just work. So let's type something like to do number 1, for example. And it couldn't compile. So I need to import something on top. I remember that deal. There we go. So the feedback on the console is pretty cool. It's literally telling me that my code is not compiling because I forgot to import this, which is pretty cool. Clear my terminal, run cargo run, add the to-do number 1. And the to-do got added, and I should have my to-dos. There we go. I can type to-do number 2, and got added automatically. To-do number 3, and got added, which is pretty cool. Matteo Mota is saying, hello, I'm a big fan of Laravel. I'm learning Rust too. Welcome to the stream, dude. Nice to see you, man. First time chat. If you just arrived, by the way, my name is Nuno Maduro, PHP and Laravel developer, and I'm streaming every single day at 9 p.m., but also publishing YouTube videos every single day at 1 p.m. And, you know, you can support my work by simply following my, you know, my YouTube channel, but also you can also follow me on Twitch. And if you really want to support my stream, if you really do enjoy the content, you can financially support the stream on Twitch by doing Twitch subscribers, or on YouTube by becoming a YouTube member. All the YouTube members get early access to the videos, which are typically prepared one day in advance. Okay. All right, so we just have finished literally the to-do add command. I feel like the next logical step is displaying all these to-dos. Let's see how I have solved that problem back in the days.
Write the contents of this description ln on my run list. Then read to string the contents within the storage.txt.
Okay. So apparently the way I've solved it was going to my list command, which obviously will have this handle command. And the way I've solved this was create a new variable with the name contents, and then read to string everything, and I'm going to unwrap the contents of to do. If I cannot find the file, I'm going to literally just print no to dos found, which is just some feedback for the user. But if I do have the content, something I can do now is possibly just print them to the terminal. So to-dos, and this will be the list of my to-dos. I think this will just work. There we go. And return 0 as well. So let's type cargo run-q with the list command. There we go. Oh my god, it felt good, man, just to be back and doing some Rust. It's been so much, man, so long time. Add hello chat, for example. And now I can display it all. There we go. Which was easy, right? I just typed fs read to string the contents of the to-do. If you cannot find the file, then print no to-dos found. If you can just find them, then print them at the bottom at the end. And we are using this to-dos txt as a storage, which typically we probably would use, something like SQLite, by the way. Carlson is saying, how about Go? I was thinking about learning it. Dude, I think we can do a stream about Go, literally. Probably during this week, because it's something that I always wanted to learn, and now that I've remind myself how to do Rust, which, this is like the most simple stuff you can do with Rust, but we can definitely do a stream about Go, okay? So what was your thoughts about Rust? So many of you said that you find Rust complicated, and you find yourself probably not using this. I'm gonna be honest with you, there is not a lot of use cases for Rust these days. This is a very fast language where typically you already have other languages for doing this, like PHP and JavaScript, which are crazy fast already, and you can just use them for web development. That's my feeling, okay? Jonas is saying, big question, why should I learn Rust and when I will use it as a web dev? I think you can probably spend your time learning something else that can be used on web development, something like event sourcing or Docker or React, for example. Those tools I'm mentioning right now, they actually have use cases on web development. I still, up to today, have a use case where I would use Rust myself. So, Canada Ross is saying how much complicated it would be to use an SQLite DB instead. I have no idea, but I would guess that they probably have some sort of library for this. Let me check real quick. Yeah, nothing too crazy. Literally just doing let connection to open SQL connection in memory, for example. In here, you possibly would provide a file, potentially a file name, to actually open a new SQLite connection. And then you would type your query just like this, and then, execute that query to the connection. So as you can see, it's nothing too crazy, which undeniably leaves some questions like, you need to escape some values here for security and things like that. But yeah, it looks easy. I'm gonna be honest, Patricio is saying Rust seems really nice. No use case for me though. Yeah, I get you, man. I get you. Just Matters is saying, just got here. You done learning Rust for the night? Yeah, I'm done. So something I wanted to do is literally redo this talk I have given at PHP UK. I'm gonna give you the link, by the way, Josh, so in case you want to redo this yourself. But the only thing I have done is literally walk through this talk I have gave in the past and redo everything. So, you know, it's nothing too crazy. But it seems that Rust is still one of the most admired languages. And what else we have here as an admired language? We have Elixir, which I have never tried as well. We have Zig, which is kind of, you know, the concurrent or the rival of Rust, which I have never used as well. And we have languages which are not the most desired, which I don't even know them, like COBOL, Prolog, MATLAB, Visual Basic, VBA. I have never used anything like this in the past. Delphi, Fortran. Oh my god. Oh, interesting. We should probably do, you know, when we find the time. Today's already late, but when we find the time, we should probably, you know, react to some of these stats. They seem interesting, by the way. Like, we do have some web frameworks and technologies, and apparently there is like a way of telling people which technologies here would you use yourself. You can see, for example, React being on the top right here. Laravel is also very well placed, by the way, with 66% of people admiring it as well, which is a very cool place to be, by the way. Would be cool as well to compare the progress with the previous years. Canada is asking, what is that site? So this is like the Stack Overflow survey, which typically, you know, it's a survey conducted every year. So I'm going to actually copy paste this survey and put here on Twitch, but also on YouTube, so you guys can follow this. There we go. Also published it on X. I apologize today. I wasn't paying too much attention on X. And just as general rule, I would advise you guys watching me on X to literally go to Twitch or YouTube. Twitch is way better. Duke10, thank you so much for the 2 months of resubscription. I really appreciate your support, dude. You're awesome, man. Thank you so much. So yeah, we are going to be back tomorrow. I hope you guys enjoyed the stream today. I enjoyed it. I really wanted to redo some of Rust, so I'm happy that I have done this live stream. So by the way, we have a Discord channel where we literally talk every single day about, you know, how our day is looking like. We say good morning every single day as well, which is something I like to do a lot. So if someone can actually copy paste the link of Discord, that will be really appreciating, by the way. Typically it's Jonas who does that, right? Or Josh, I don't even know. But I would really appreciate if someone can just copy paste the link of Discord so we can share it. And typically on Discord, we also have this ideas and feedback. So what you can do is literally propose streams on Discord so we can talk about them. Typically, I like to do streams that make me have fun, you know. Today was like relearning Rust, but like 2 weeks ago was about event sourcing, 3 weeks ago was about learning Svelte. So ideally, I would combine the topics of the streams with something I really want to learn, so, you know, some of you can learn as well. Adrian is saying it's time to add chat comments. Yeah, I literally Googled that this morning, where there is this bot on Twitch called Nightbot, I think, which allows me to basically add commands to the chat, so you guys can type, you know, ! Discord to find the Discord channel, but also find other interesting links. Ducatan, thank you for sharing the Discord link, by the way. But yeah, dudes, that's it for today. I hope you guys have enjoyed the stream. And let's be back tomorrow again at 9 p.m, okay? And we are going to have a YouTube video tomorrow at 1 p.m. Let's rate someone, as usual. Who do we have today? Oh, by the way, we literally deploy the latest changes on Developers Live. So if you now go to developers-live.com, you will find a totally different website. Probably need to curate a little bit more, you know, the people who were got added to this list. But you can see like a full front end rewrite of this. This was done by, okay, I forgot the names. Let me check that real quick. Nuno, developerslive.com. And the developers who did this was João Paulo in Dev and also Leandro Ferreira. Okay, so they both literally got added as admins. This is something I don't have problems to do. Like, I literally love to give ownership to people to build whatever they want with my current tooling. I have in the past give ownership of existing projects of mine to other people because I just feel it's a better way to grow those projects. So João Paulo in Dev and also Leandro, they are now both committing work as we speak to developerslive.com. Okay, I'm going to share the repo here in case you guys want to check this out. There we go. So that being said, tomorrow we are going to be back probably with some pack PHP work, which, if you don't know, this little project I'm developing, which is the next generation of PHP tooling which detects spell checks. Okay, not methods incorrect or whatever, literally spell checking, like checking if you have named your methods correctly in terms of wording. And tomorrow we are going to be back to this. We have a lot of pull requests coming from the community, so we need to work a little bit, grind a little bit, but I can already see some interesting stuff here, like caching, for example, which is something I have noticed is that the first run is super slow, and potentially we can have some caching into this, which will be interesting to review. And we have other pull requests, which potentially they are going to be interesting as well, and we are going to review all of this on stream. Okay, dudes, that's it for me today. Let's find someone to raid real quick. Who do we have today? Let's double check that. Shaking Coffee, good night, dude. You know what? Because we are doing Rust today, I feel like we can potentially raid again Team Vash. Exactly. So this streamer was literally writing Rust yesterday, I think, and she was also learning Rust, so potentially will be, you know, a good streamer to raid again. Oh, you were kidding? I wasn't, literally, because I think she was doing Rust yesterday. Okay, so you can potentially raid them again. What do you think? Yeah, she's working with Tauri, which is the Electron style of Rust that you guys talked about. Jukatan is saying, I've DM you on Discord. I would love if you can take a look at my message, whatever you can. Yeah, I will check, dude. Hey, Judy's saying, why don't you use Developers Live? Well, actually, I still need to curate a list of streamers. It's still literally not, it's still not accurate. At least the members that should be there. You know, I need to spend some time over there. All right, folks. Thank you so much for being here today. I had a blast relearning Rust again, and it was fun. Thank you so much for for being here today. Yeah, Ducatan, we are going to curate the list. I'm going to give you admin, and you can curate the list. What do you think about that? All right, dude. See you all tomorrow. It was a fun of a stream. So see you tomorrow. Peace out.